The Galactic Alliance Council chamber fell silent as Admiral Drack pounded his forearms on the table. His crystalline exoskeleton glimmered under the chamber's lights, his compound eyes narrowing in agitation. "This is unacceptable," he bellowed. "We cannot allow another human vessel into our space. Their last diplomatic mission ended with 3 of our outposts declaring independence." High Counselor Mira, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate hovering vessel, pulsed green with concern. "The humans have followed protocol. They've formally requested docking rights at Station Epsilon. We cannot deny them without cause." "Their mere existence is cause enough," Drack retorted. "These creatures have been part of interstellar society for barely 2 centuries, yet they've upended millennia of established order." Commander Belith of the Taurian fleet leaned forward, her scaled face serious. "The human vessel approaching is the UES Dauntless. Intelligence confirms it's a war vessel, Admiral, not a diplomatic craft." A collective gasp echoed through the council chamber. War vessels were only deployed during times of conflict or extreme tension. The Galactic Alliance had enjoyed relative peace for over 3,000 years, until humans made first contact. "Why would they send a war vessel for supposedly peaceful talks?" Drack demanded. Beleth consulted her data terminal. "Unknown, but there's something else. Scans indicate it's their newest class. A Titan-class dreadnought." The chamber erupted in commotion. The Titan class was legendary, the same vessel type that had single-handedly ended the Harvester incursion at Proxima Centauri, a conflict the Alliance had deemed unwinnable. Counselor Trell, representing the ancient Vorban race, raised a withered appendage. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of millennia. "Perhaps we should consider what we know of human psychology. They don't think like us. They're unpredictable." "Unpredictable is a diplomatic way of putting it," Drax sneered. "They're chaos incarnate. They rush headlong into situations any rational species would avoid. Their diplomats argue passionately, for positions they don't even believe in, just to test reactions. Their negotiation tactics change mid-conversation. And yet," Mira pulsed thoughtfully, "they defeated the Harvesters when we could not." An uncomfortable silence settled over the chamber. The Harvester War had nearly destroyed the Alliance before humans arrived on the galactic stage. The newcomers had taken one look at the unwinnable situation and simply won it. "Station Epsilon requires an answer," Beleth reminded them. "The Dauntless will arrive in 6 cycles." High Counselor Mira's containment vessel drifted to the center of the chamber. "We will grant docking rights, but with full security protocols. Admiral Drack, your concerns are noted, but denying them could trigger the very incident we fear." As the council dispersed, Ambassador Lorne approached quietly, joining Reed at the viewport. "Quite the achievement," Lorne remarked. 6 months ago, most of the council saw humans as dangerous upstarts. Now they're entrusting you with the greatest fleet ever assembled." Reed smiled slightly. "Turns out near extinction is a powerful motivator for change." Indeed. Lorne's silver skin rippled with what Reed had come to recognize as thoughtful contemplation. "You know, there's an ancient Velocian proverb. The strongest alloys are forged in the hottest fires." "We have a similar saying on Earth," Reed replied. "Pressure makes diamonds." They stood in companionable silence, watching as ships moved into formation. The distinctive silhouette of the Dauntless, now bearing the markings of the combined defense fleet, took position at the vanguard. "Commander?" Barnes approached, saluting crisply. "Captain, Admiral Drack requests your presence on the command deck. Final briefing before departure." Reed nodded. "On my way." He turned to Lorne. "Ambassador, will you be joining the observation team?" "Actually," Lorne replied with a hint of pride, "the Council has granted my request for field assignment. I'll be serving as diplomatic liaison aboard the Dauntless." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Combat missions aren't typically where ambassadors prefer to serve." "Perhaps not," Lorne acknowledged. "But I've developed a curious appreciation for human unpredictability. Besides, someone needs to explain your unorthodox tactics to our Alliance colleagues." Reed laughed. A genuine, warm sound that would have been unimaginable in the tense council chambers 6 months earlier. "Welcome aboard, then." As they walked toward the command deck, Reed reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought them here. Humanity had entered galactic society as outsiders, viewed with suspicion and sometimes outright hostility. Yet when crisis came, it was that very outsider perspective that provided the solution no one else could see. The command deck bustled with activity, a seamless integration of human and alien crew working side by side. At the center, Admiral Drack stood before a three-dimensional tactical display, discussing final approach vectors with fleet captains. "Ah, Captain Reed," Drack acknowledged as they entered. "We were just reviewing the attack formation. Your suggestion about flanking maneuvers has been incorporated into the plan." Reed studied the display. "The harvesters won't expect us to know their location, much less launch a coordinated assault. We'll have surprise on our side, but we can't count on that lasting long." "Agreed," said Drack, "which is why timing is crucial. All vessels must emerge from hyperspace simultaneously and target the hibernation pods before the harvesters can mount a defense." Dr. Miller joined them, her expression serious. "Our analysis of the spore samples suggests the harvesters require approximately 47 seconds to transition from hibernation to combat readiness. That's our window." "A narrow opportunity," Drack observed, "but sufficient if coordination is maintained." Reed nodded, then addressed the assembled officers. "This mission represents more than just a military operation. It's proof that despite our differences, biological, cultural, philosophical, we're stronger together than apart. The harvesters believed they could exploit our divisions. Today, we prove them wrong." A chorus of acknowledgments sounded from around the room, some verbal, others expressed through species-specific gestures or light patterns. Admiral Drack raised his forearms in the traditional Alliance salute. "For the Alliance!" Reed straightened, returning the salute in human fashion. "For the Alliance." As final preparations were completed, Reed found himself back at the viewport, watching as ships began moving into jump formation. The fleet would soon depart, carrying the hopes of countless worlds across the galaxy. Commander Barnes approached one last time. "All personnel report ready, sir. The Dauntless awaits your return." Reed took a final look at Station Epsilon, the site of near disaster, transformed into a symbol of unprecedented cooperation. "You know, Barnes," he said quietly, "when we first encountered the Alliance, I worried we'd never find common ground. Different biologies, different values, different ways of thinking. What changed your mind, sir?" Reed smiled. "I realized that beneath all those differences, we share something fundamental, the will to survive, to protect our homes, to build something that lasts. In the end, that matters more than any difference." Barnes nodded thoughtfully. "Never thought I'd see the day when an Alliance admiral and a human captain would share command." "Necessity makes for strange bedfellows," Reed replied. Then he straightened his uniform and turned toward the exit. "Come on, Commander. We have a war to win." As they walked toward the docking bay where a shuttle waited to return them to the Dauntless, warning lights began flashing throughout the corridor. Not red for danger, but blue, the Alliance color for fleet departure. Over the station's communication system, Admiral Drack's voice resonated clearly. "Attention all vessels. Commencing Operation Forewarned. May fortune favor our combined strengths." Reed quickened his pace. History awaited, not just for humanity or the Alliance separately, but for what they were becoming together. Outside, the vast armada began to move in perfect synchronization. The stars themselves seemed to watch as civilization's greatest fleet departed to face its greatest threat. At their center flew the UES Dauntless, no longer feared or viewed with suspicion, but leading the charge. And throughout Alliance space, on countless worlds and stations, a new warning now appeared on traffic control systems whenever human vessels arrived. Not as a cause for alarm, but as a message of hope. Caution. Arriving human war vessel. The Endorn caught up with Mira in the antechamber. Unlike most Alliance species, Lorne's people shared a distant evolutionary ancestor with humans, giving him unique insight. "You should know," Lorne said quietly. "I received a private transmission from my contact in the human diplomatic corps. The Dauntless isn't coming for negotiations." Mira's gaseous form swirled anxiously. "Then why?" "They believe the Harvesters weren't defeated, merely driven back. Their intelligence suggests an imminent full-scale invasion in Alliance space." Lorne's voice dropped further. "They're not coming to talk, Counselor. They're coming to save us. Again." Outside the council chamber windows, the distant stars seemed suddenly colder as the magnitude of the situation sank in. 6 cycles until the Dauntless arrived, and with it, either salvation or chaos. Station Epsilon hung like a jeweled spiderweb against the backdrop of the Cygnus Nebula. The sprawling space station served as the Alliance's primary hub in this sector, home to representatives from over 200 species and a critical trade junction connecting 17 star systems. Captain Jack Reed stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless, hands clasped behind his back as he observed the massive station through the viewscreen. His weathered face remained impassive, but his gray eyes missed nothing. "They've assigned us docking bay E-17, reported Lieutenant Gray. His communications. Officer. That's in their military quadrant, away from civilian areas." Reed nodded. "As expected. Status of our guests?" "Secure in the containment bay, sir," Commander Barnes answered from her tactical station. The tall, dark-skinned woman's expression was grim. "The specimens remain dormant, but Dr. Miller warns that could change rapidly." "Understood. Maintain level 5 quarantine protocols." Reed turned to address his bridge crew. "Listen up, people. The Alliance Council isn't going to like what we've brought them. Hell, they probably won't believe us at first. But facts are facts, and those specimens in our hold prove the Harvester threat isn't over." The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity's relationship with the Galactic Alliance remained complicated. Humans were newcomers, considered brash and unpredictable by the older species, who valued stability and gradual change over millennia. The fact that humans had achieved in decades what Alliance races couldn't in centuries made them simultaneously valued and feared. "Sir," said Lieutenant Gray. "Incoming transmission from Station Epsilon. It's Admiral Drack." Reed sighed. "Of course it is. Put him through." The view screen shifted to show Admiral Drack's crystalline face, compound eyes glinting with suspicion. "Captain Reed, the Alliance Council has granted you docking privileges, but I must insist on knowing your true purpose here. A war vessel of your class doesn't make social calls." "Admiral," Reed replied evenly, "I'm under direct orders from Earth, Central Command, to share our findings only with the full Council. What we've discovered affects the entire Alliance." Drack's mandibles clicked in annoyance. More human dramatics. "Very well, but be warned. Your vessel will be under constant surveillance. 1 deviation from approved protocols and I'll have your ship impounded." "Noted, Admiral. We'll comply with all regulations." Reed maintained his professional demeanor until the transmission ended, then muttered, "Charming as ever, Commander." Barnes moved closer, speaking quietly. "Sir, do you think they'll listen this time, after what happened at Proxima?" Reed's jaw tightened. The Battle of Proxima had been humanity's first major contribution to Alliance security. A desperate last stand against the Harvester fleet. The humans had prevailed, but their unorthodox tactics had horrified many Alliance races almost as much as the enemy had. "They'll listen," Reed said firmly, "because this time, we have proof." 3 hours later, the Dauntless docked at Station Epsilon. Captain Reed led a small delegation through the airlock, immediately noting the excessive security presence. Armored guards from various species lined the docking bay, their weapons not quite pointed at the humans, but close enough to make the implication clear. A slender, silver-skinned figure stepped forward. "Captain Reed, I am Lorne, Alliance Diplomatic Service. I've been assigned as your liaison during your stay." Reed recognized the species. Velocians shared distant genetic markers with humans, one of the few Alliance races that did. Whether this assignment was meant as a courtesy or a calculated move remained to be seen. "Ambassador Lorne, I request an immediate audience with the Council." "I'm afraid that's not possible," Lorne replied smoothly. "Protocol dictates—" "Ambassador," Reed interrupted, his voice deadly quiet. "In approximately 48 hours, a Harvester scout fleet will arrive at the edges of this system. The specimens we've brought prove they've evolved new capabilities that render most Alliance defenses obsolete. If the Council waits for protocol, there might not be a Station Epsilon left to defend." Lorne's silvery skin paled further. "That's a significant claim." "It's not a claim," Reed said, handing over a secure data crystal. "It's a warning." The Alliance Council chambers had never felt so crowded. Representatives from 27 major species sat in tiered rows, murmuring among themselves as technical staff prepared the presentation area. Captain Reed stood at The center, flanked by Dr. Miller and Commander Barnes. High Counselor Mira's containment vessel glowed with a nervous blue light. Captain Reed, you've made alarming claims. The Council has agreed to this emergency session, but many remain skeptical. Skeptical is an understatement, Admiral Drack interjected. The Harvesters were defeated at Proxima Centauri. Our monitoring, boys have detected no activity in their former territory for 6 years. Reed nodded to Dr. Miller, who stepped forward. The scientist's lean frame seemed almost fragile next to the alien council members, but her voice carried with unwavering confidence. What you detected was exactly what the Harvesters wanted you to detect, she began. 3 months ago, a human deep space research vessel encountered this. A holographic projection appeared above the chamber floor, a small object, seemingly organic but with metallic components integrated into its structure. We initially believed it was debris, Dr. Miller continued, until it interfaced with our systems and attempted to transmit our coordinates back to its origin point. Admiral Drack leaned forward. If this is true, why bring this to us now? Why, not when you first discovered it? Because we needed to be certain, Reed answered. Humanity remembers the accusations after Proxima, that we exaggerated the threat to justify our military expansion. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many Council species still believed humans had manipulated the Harvester crisis for their own gain. We tracked the transmission's destination, Reed continued, and sent unmanned probes. What they found confirms our worst fears. He gestured, and new images appeared. Massive, organic mechanical structures hidden in the radioactive clouds of a dwarf star, nearly undetectable to standard Alliance scanning methods. A hibernation cluster, Dr. Miller explained. Not just a scout fleet. We estimate at least 300 capital ships in stasis. They're not defeated. They've been evolving, adapting, preparing. The chamber erupted in voices. Counselor Trell raised his ancient appendage for silence. If these Harvesters are as advanced as you claim, why haven't they attacked already? They're waiting for something, Commander Barnes replied. Based on the transmission patterns we've intercepted, we believe they're coordinating a simultaneous strike across multiple sectors. The attack on this system is just the first wave. Convenient that only humans detected this threat, Admiral Drack said skeptically. Perhaps another excuse to deploy your war vessels throughout Alliance space? Captain Reed's patience finally broke. Damn it, Admiral. We didn't navigate across 17 light years because we enjoy your hospitality. We came because despite our differences, we're allies. Because regardless of how you feel about humans, we don't want to see Alliance worlds fall. A tense silence followed before Ambassador Lorne spoke. Perhaps we should examine the specimens you've brought? Reed nodded grimly. Dr. Miller, show them. A sealed container was brought forward. Through its transparent walls, the Council could see what appeared to be metallic spores, pulsing with faint internal light. These are Harvester infiltration units, Dr. Miller explained. New generation, designed to attach to host technology and subvert it from within. They're particularly attracted to quantum communication arrays, like the ones controlling Station Epsilon's defense grid. As if responding to being observed, the spores began to vibrate, their pulses synchronizing. They're attempting to communicate, Dr. Miller said urgently. The container has quantum shielding, but the alarm came too late. Throughout the station, lights flickered. Emergency sirens began to wail. Impossible, gasped Admiral Drack. Your containment. Our containment is secure, Reed snapped, checking his datapad. These aren't responding to the samples we brought. Your station is already infected. On the main view screen, a security feed showed maintenance droids in the lower levels moving with unnatural coordination, attaching strange devices to the station's power conduits. How long have these been on my station? Demanded Drack. Reed met his gaze steadily. That's what we've been trying to tell you, Admiral. They've been here all along. The attack isn't coming in 48 hours. It's already begun. All Alliance, personnel, battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The announcement echoed through Station Epsilon as chaos erupted. Council members were quickly escorted to secure areas while security teams deployed throughout the station. Captain Reed's communicator chirped. Reed here. Captain, this is Commander Barnes. I've returned to the Dauntless and initiated defense protocols. We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the maintenance levels. consistent with the patterns we observed in the Harvester outpost. Understood. Prepare for emergency departure if necessary. Reed turned to find Admiral Drack approaching, flanked by his security detail. You brought this upon us, Drack accused, his crystalline form vibrating with anger. We came to warn you, Reed countered. Your station was compromised long before we arrived. Those maintenance droids have been sabotaged for months, gathering intelligence, waiting for activation. Dr. Miller joined them, datapad in hand. Captain, I've analyzed the station's maintenance logs. Several droids were serviced 6 months ago after returning from an asteroid mining operation near the outer system boundary. The perfect cover, Reed muttered. Admiral, those mining droids encountered Harvester advanced scouts. They've been sleeper agents ever since. A massive tremor shook the station. Ambassador Lorne staggered toward them, his silver skin pale with stress. The lower ring has been sealed off, Lorne reported. Security feeds show the compromised droids are constructing something around the main reactor. A dimensional beacon, Dr. Miller said grimly. Same design we found at the dwarf star cluster. They're creating a navigational anchor for the main fleet. Reed's mind raced through options. Admiral, your station defenses are offline, Drack finished, compound eyes blinking rapidly. Primary and secondary systems are not responding. Tertiary systems are limited to life support and emergency functions. Reed tapped his communicator. Barnes, what's the Dauntless's status? All systems operational, sir. We're detecting multiple energy spikes throughout the station. Something's coming through. As if on cue, the station's emergency bulkheads began to close. Through a nearby viewport, Reed could see strange, shimmering distortions appearing in space around the station, dimensional tiers forming. They're creating micro-wormholes, Dr. Miller explained, scanning with her instruments. The Harvester fleet isn't coming through traditional space. They're bypassing your early warning systems. Completely. Admiral Drack's mandibles clicked in distress. Station Epsilon is a hub for 7 major trade routes. If it falls, the Harvesters gain instant access to a third of Alliance space, Reed finished. We need to stop that beacon from activating. Impossible, said Drack. The lower rings are sealed and flooded with radiation from the compromised reactor. Reed's expression hardened. Nothing's impossible, Admiral. Humanity has a saying, where there's a will, there's a way. He turned to his communicator. Barnes, prepare a strike team. We're going to need Raven suits and the prototype disruptors. Sir, Barnes replied, those disruptors are experimental. We've never field-tested them against actual Harvester tech. No time like the present, Commander. Ambassador Lorne stepped forward. Captain Reed, what are you planning? A direct assault on the beacon. Dr. Miller's research suggests the Harvester technology is vulnerable during its initialization sequence. We have maybe 30 minutes before it's fully operational. That's suicide, Drack stated flatly. Even if your team reaches the lower ring, the radiation levels, the Raven suits can handle it, Reed interrupted. For about 20 minutes. Should be enough time. Lorne looked between Reed and Drack, then made a decision. I can guide them through the maintenance tunnels. They bypass the standard security lockdowns. Drack's compound eyes widened. Ambassador, that is not advisable. Neither is standing by while our station becomes a beachhead for invasion, Lorne replied firmly. My people helped design Epsilon's infrastructure. I know paths that don't appear on standard schematics. Reed nodded gratefully. Miller, you're with me. We'll need your expertise to identify the beacon's weak points. He turned to Admiral Drack. Admiral, can you organize your remaining forces to secure the civilian sectors? For a moment, Drack seemed ready to object, his crystalline form rigid, with ingrained distrust. Then slowly, his posture changed. Very well, Captain. It seems we have little choice but to trust human ingenuity. Again. As they moved toward the exit, another tremor shook the station, stronger than before. Through the viewport, the first Harvester vessel emerged from a dimensional tear, a nightmarish blend of organic tissue and metallic structure, bristling with weapons. And so it begins, Reed murmured. Again. The maintenance tunnel was barely wide enough for Reed's armored form as he crawled through the cramped space. The Raven suit's exoskeleton whirred softly with each movement, its systems continuously filtering the increasing radiation. Behind him, Dr. Miller and Ambassador Lorne followed, with 3 dauntless crewmen bringing up the rear. Radiation levels increasing, Dr. Miller reported, her voice slightly distorted through the suit's communication system. 350 rems and climbing. Suits are rated for 1,000, Reed replied. How much farther, Ambassador? Lorne, equipped with a modified environmental suit, consulted a holographic map projected from his wrist device. 2 more junctions. Then we drop down into auxiliary control. From there, we can access the reactor level. Above them, they could feel the station shuddering periodically. Evidence of the battle raging outside. Commander Barnes had taken the Dauntless into the fight, attempting to destroy the harvester vessels as they emerged from the dimensional tiers. Reed's communicator crackled. Captain, Barnes here. We've destroyed 3 enemy ships, but more keep coming through. Station Epsilon's defensive grid remains offline. Understood. Keep them occupied, Commander. We're almost at the beacon. They reached a vertical shaft where maintenance ladders descended into darkness. Reed went first. The Raven suit's enhanced strength making the climb down easier despite the awkward bulk. As they descended, the temperature rose dramatically. The cooling systems near the reactor were clearly compromised. Captain, Dr. Miller said suddenly, I'm detecting unusual energy fluctuations below us. The beacon's initialization is accelerating. How long do we have? 15 minutes, maybe less. When they finally reached auxiliary control, the scene was catastrophic. The room had been transformed into something alien. Harvester biomechanical growths covered the walls and control panels, pulsing with sickly light. What had once been maintenance droids were now horrific hybrids, their mechanical parts fused with organic harvester components. Hold position, Reed whispered as the team crouched behind a damaged console. The converted droids moved with eerie purpose, tending to the alien growth. Ambassador Lorne suppressed a gasp. By the ancestors, they've completely taken over the systems. Dr. Miller scanned the room with her equipment. The main beacon components are through that doorway. She indicated a passage nearly obscured by alien growth. But those hybrid droids will detect us the moment we move. Reed considered their options. A frontal assault would alert every converted system on the station. Stealth seemed impossible given the biomechanical sensors undoubtedly scanning the area. We need a diversion, he decided. Taylor, Martinez, set sonic disruptors on the far side of the room. Ambassador, can you override any of the remaining station systems from here? Lorne studied the transformed control panels. Perhaps the fire suppression system. It's on an isolated circuit. Do it. Miller, prep the EMP charges. We'll have one shot at this. As the team moved into position, Reed noticed something disturbing. The hybrid droids seemed to be changing even as they watched, their transformations accelerating. One turned suddenly, its optical sensors sweeping the room. It paused, focusing in their direction. Now, Reed ordered. The sonic disruptors activated, emitting frequencies specifically calibrated to disrupt harvester neural networks. Simultaneously, Lorne triggered the fire suppression system, flooding the chamber with chemical suppressant. The hybrid droids convulsed, their movements becoming erratic. Reed led the charge through the confusion, the Raven suit's enhanced capabilities allowing him to smash through the disoriented droids. The team fought their way to the reactor chamber doorway, but as they approached, a massive tremor shook the station. Captain! Barnes's voice came through the communicator. A harvester dreadnought just emerged. It's firing on the station's upper rings. Inside the reactor chamber, the scene was even more nightmarish. The entire room had been transformed into what looked like the interior of some vast, alien organism. At the center, wrapped around the reactor core, was the beacon, a towering structure of pulsing organic matter interlaced with complex machinery. Dr. Miller immediately began scanning it. The dimensional field is already initializing. We need to place the charges at the primary nodes, there, and there. She pointed to pulsating structures along the beacon's base. As they moved forward, a horrifying screech echoed through the chamber. From shadowed recesses emerged what could only be described as harvester shock troops. Not converted machinery, but actual harvester biological constructs. Their bodies a terrifying blend of insectoid, reptilian, and mechanical components. Defensive. Positions! Reed shouted, raising his weapon. Miller, Place those charges! We'll cover you! The Harvester troops attacked with inhuman speed, climbing along walls and ceiling. Reed and his security team fired precisely, their weapons specifically designed to disrupt Harvester neural systems. Ambassador Lorne proved surprisingly effective in combat, his natural agility complementing his knowledge of Alliance defensive techniques. Together, they formed a protective circle around Dr. Miller as she worked frantically to place the EMP charges. "Last one in place," she finally called. "Initiating countdown. 2 minutes." "Fall back," Reed ordered. "Everyone out now." But as they turned to retreat, a massive Harvester form dropped from above, blocking their exit. Unlike the others, this one appeared to be some kind of command unit, its body larger and more heavily augmented. It spoke, a horrifying sound of mechanical and organic components working in unison. Humans, always interfering. Reed stepped forward, placing himself between the creature and his team. "That's what we do best." The Harvester commander lunged with terrifying speed, its blade-like appendages slicing through the air where Reed had stood a moment before. The captain rolled aside, the Raven suit's enhanced reflexes barely keeping him ahead of the attack. "Get to the exit," Reed shouted to the others as he fired his disruptor. The energy pulse struck the Harvester commander, who staggered momentarily, before its adaptive systems compensated. 60 seconds to detonation!" Dr. Miller called out as she and the security team backed toward the doorway, providing covering fire. Ambassador Lorne hesitated. "Captain, go!" Reed ordered, barely evading another vicious strike. His suit's warning system flashed red, radiation levels were climbing dangerously, and the exoskeleton's right arm actuator was damaged from a glancing blow. The Harvester commanders seemed to focus entirely on Reed, ignoring the others. "Your species, temporary anomaly, will be corrected." Reed fired again, this time aiming for the junction between organic and mechanical components. The creature shrieked, black fluid spraying from the wound. 45 seconds! Miller's voice came through the comm. The creature recovered quickly, its body visibly regenerating. Reed realized with horror that it was adapting to his weapon's frequency. His next shot had noticeably less effect. Reed backed toward a cluster of power conduits, keeping the creature's attention. "You know why you fear us?" he taunted. "Because we're unpredictable. You can't calculate what we'll do next." "Irrelevant," the creature hissed. "Your biological limitations cannot overcome evolutionary perfection." "Maybe not," Reed agreed, glancing at his suit's readout. 30 seconds. "But we're pretty good at improvising." In a swift motion, Reed ripped a power coupling from the wall and hurled it at the creature. As the Harvester commander batted it aside contemptuously, Reed made his real move, diving between its legs and rolling toward the exit. "Clever, but futile," the creature said, turning with unnatural speed and lashing out. Its blade caught Reed's leg, slicing through the suit's armor and into flesh beneath. Reed cried out, falling. The suit's medical systems immediately engaged, injecting pain suppressants and coagulants, but the damage was done. He tried to stand, but the leg wouldn't support his weight. 20 seconds! Miller's voice was frantic now. The Harvester commander loomed over Reed, its nightmare visage leaning close. "Your resistance. Meaningless." "Never bet against humans," Reed gasped, raising his arm. Not to fire his weapon, but to reveal the EMP charge he'd palmed earlier, now blinking with an active countdown. The creature's compound eyes widened in what might have been the Harvester equivalent of shock. It lunged to disarm the device, but too late. Reed pressed the detonator. The localized EMP blast engulfed them both. The Harvester commander convulsed violently as its synthetic components failed catastrophically. Reed's Raven suit similarly went dark, its systems overloaded by the pulse. In the sudden silence, Reed could hear only his own labored breathing inside the powerless helmet. His suit was dead weight now, and without its protective systems, the reactor room's radiation would kill him in minutes. Then hands were grabbing him, dragging him. Without the suit's audio systems, he couldn't hear the voices. But he recognized the silver blur that was Ambassador Lorne and the bulky shapes of his security team in their still-functioning suits. They were pulling him toward the exit as the countdown on the main EMP charges ticked toward 0. Through the doorway, down a corridor, Reed's consciousness began to fade as radiation poisoning and blood loss took their toll. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Dr. Miller's face through her helmet visor, her lips forming words he couldn't hear. Then the world disappeared in a flash of brilliant light. Reed awakened to the soft beep of medical monitors. His vision cleared slowly, revealing the familiar ceiling of the Dauntless's medical bay. He tried to move and found his body surprisingly responsive despite the bandages and regeneration packs attached to his leg. "The prodigal captain returns to the land of the living," said a familiar voice. Reed turned his head to see Commander Barnes sitting beside his bed, her normally stoic face showing signs of relief. "The station?" Reed asked, his voice raspy. "Still there mostly," Barnes replied. "The EMP knocked out the beacon before it could fully activate. The dimensional tiers collapsed, cutting off the Harvester reinforcements. We lost the lower rings, but the majority of the station remains intact." "Casualties?" Barnes's expression sobered. "Heavy among station security, moderate among civilian population. We lost Martinez and Taylor." Reed closed his eyes briefly, honoring his fallen crew. "Dr. Miller? Ambassador Lorne?" "Miller's fine, already analyzing the data we collected." "The ambassador?" Barnes smiled slightly. "He's become something of a celebrity. Apparently dragging a human captain through radiation-flooded corridors while wearing a barely adequate environmental suit has earned him considerable respect." Reed attempted to sit up, wincing at the pain. "The Harvester fleet?" "The Dauntless managed to destroy the Dreadnought before you detonated the EMP. After that, the remaining ships seemed disoriented. Admiral Drack's forces rallied and drove them back. Alliance reinforcements arrived about 6 hours later. The door slid open, and Admiral Drack entered, his crystalline form somehow conveying both authority and, grudgingly, respect. "Captain Reed," the Admiral acknowledged. "Your medical officer informs me you'll make a full recovery. Apparently, humans are as difficult to kill as they are to understand." Reed managed a weak smile. "We try to keep things interesting, Admiral." Drack's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Indeed. The Council has convened an emergency session. Your Dr. Miller's evidence, combined with what we witnessed, has altered certain perspectives." Meaning, Drack said, carefully, "that perhaps the Alliance has been overly conservative in its approach to the Harvester threat, and perhaps human unpredictability has its uses." It was as close to an apology or acknowledgement as Reed was likely to get from the proud Admiral. "What happens now?" Reed asked. "Now," said Drack, "we prepare. The Harvesters will return, but thanks to you, we'll be ready. The Council has approved a joint defense initiative. Alliance technology combined with human tactical innovations." Reed nodded, satisfaction and relief washing over him. It had taken near catastrophe, but finally, the Alliance understood what humanity had been trying to tell them for years. The Harvesters were coming, and this time, they would face a united front. 6 months later, the observation deck of the newly reconstructed Station Epsilon offered a spectacular view of the assembled fleet. Alliance vessels of various designs held formation alongside Earth ships, their combined presence transforming this once vulnerable sector into the most heavily defended region in known space. Captain Reed stood at the viewport, his dress uniform pressed and medals gleaming. The limp from his injured leg was barely noticeable now, thanks to advanced regenerative treatments. Beside him, Ambassador Lorne watched the fleet with evident pride. "Quite a sight," Lorne remarked. "The largest combined fleet in Alliance history." Reed nodded. "Never thought I'd see the day." After the battle at Station Epsilon, everything had changed. The Alliance Council had finally acknowledged the true scope of the Harvester threat and embraced humanity's more aggressive defense strategies. The reconstruction of Station Epsilon had included the installation of new defensive systems based on human designs, while Alliance engineers had enhanced Earth vessels with their more advanced shielding technology. "Captain Reed," called a familiar voice. Admiral Drack approached, accompanied by Dr. Miller and a delegation of Alliance officials. The Admiral's crystalline form seemed less rigid than before, his posture almost cordial. "Admiral," Reed acknowledged, with a respectful nod. "The fleet looks ready." "Indeed," Drack replied. "Operation Forewarned will commence on schedule." The preemptive strike against the Harvester hibernation cluster has been approved unanimously by the Council. Dr. Miller stepped forward, datapad in hand. Our latest intelligence confirms the cluster remains in the dwarf star system. They appear to be rebuilding after their failed attack here, but they don't yet realize we've located their primary base. The change in alliance strategy had been perhaps the most surprising development. For millennia, the Galactic Alliance had been defensive in orientation, responding to threats rather than eliminating them proactively. The adoption of humanity's more aggressive approach represented a fundamental philosophical shift. High Counselor Mira's containment vessel glided forward, pulsing with calm blue light. "Captain Reed, the Council has reached a decision regarding Earth's petition." Reed straightened. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, the real reason for today's gathering. After careful consideration, Mira continued, Earth has been granted full membership in the Galactic Alliance, with all associated rights and responsibilities. You are no longer provisional associates, but equal partners. A spontaneous cheer erupted from the humans present. Full membership had been humanity's goal since first contact, but the Alliance had been reluctant to admit such a young species into their ancient coalition. Furthermore, Mira added when the celebration quieted, in recognition of humanity's unique contributions to Alliance security, the Council has approved the formation of a new joint military command. Admiral Drack and Captain Reed will serve as co-commanders of the combined defense fleet. Reed couldn't hide his surprise as he looked at Drack. The Admiral's compound eyes betrayed no emotion, but the slight incline of his head suggested acceptance, perhaps even approval. "I'm honored," Reed said simply, "and ready to serve." "There's more," Ambassador Lorne interjected. "Show them, Dr. Miller." Miller activated her datapad, projecting a hologram of what appeared to be a massive shipyard in Earth orbit. At its center was the skeletal framework of a vessel unlike any Reed had seen before, clearly incorporating both human and Alliance design elements. "The Concordance," Miller explained. "First of the new Genesis-class vessels. Human weapon systems, Alliance, propulsion technology, and a hybrid command structure with integrated crews from both." Reed studied the design with growing appreciation. "How many?" "The Council has authorized an initial production run of 12, Admiral Drack replied. "Construction of the first 3 has already begun." Commander Barnes joined them, her expression serious. "Sir, the fleet captains report all vessels ready. We await your orders." Reed exchanged a look with Drack, then nodded. "Signal the fleet. Operation Forewarned commences in 1 hour." As the others moved away to prepare, Reed remained at the viewport, contemplating the assembled ships. Each represented a different world, a different evolutionary path, a different approach to the universe. Yet now they flew together, united against a common threat.